Good morning and welcome to another episode of the Market Snapshot series. My name is Rufus Kamau, Market Analyst at FX Pesa. So today we'll be talking about the top market events to be watching this week. So we'll be looking at the economic calendar. We'll also be looking at the geopolitics and how it's affecting the markets. And once we cover these, we'll go through some technical analysis, try to understand what's currently the current market structures, where the markets might be headed next. And hopefully everyone will approach the markets from an informed perspective. And I hope you guys have a good week. So first of all, congratulations to Manchester City for winning the league. And second, I would like to begin with a disclaimer. And these sessions are always educational. They are not investment advice, and they are not a recommendation to trade. So you should always do your own due diligence and practice proper risk management. So good morning, Lamik Bure. Thank you for joining. Good morning, Murage, J Squad. Thank you guys for joining. Good morning, Kenos, Kenneth Roche, as well as Jason. So let's get things started. So I'll be starting with the economic calendar. So I'll try and share a bigger screen. Hopefully has a better view for you guys. So Monday started quite slowly, but fast for some assets. So we had an interest rate decision coming in at 4:15 a.m. and this is from China. So the People's Bank of China decided to maintain interest rates at the current level of 3.45% for the 1-year loan prime rate and 3.95% for the 5-year loan prime rate. So the better part of the day, we're expecting to have bank holidays in the Eurozone as well as in Canada. So in the Eurozone, we'll be seeing the Switzerland, France, Germany, and other economies in the Eurozone celebrating the Wheat Monday. So what this basically means is that banks will be closed. So whenever you see a bank holiday, means that the banks in that region will be closed. And as a result, you expect low volatility for that currency. So in this case, the currencies affected will be the Swiss currency or the Swiss franc, the euro, as well as the Canadian dollar. And then for the Canadian dollar, the bank holiday is in observance of Victoria Day. So besides this, it's one day that is packed with a lot of FOMC member speeches. So remember, last night we had a speech from Jerome Powell. So going forward for the rest of the day, we'll be having a speech from Bank of England MPC member Broadbent. This will be at midday. Then FOMC member Bostic will speak at 2:30 p.m. Bostic will also speak again at 3:45 p.m. Then FOMC member Waller at 4 p.m., FOMC member Barr at 4 p.m., then FOMC member Jefferson at 5:30 p.m., and of course, FOMC member Miester at 9 p.m. So what this means is that a lot of investors will be following closely to understand the collective thinking of these FOMC members. So as we approach the beginning of the week, you can see that we had this speech at 10:30 p.m., which was last night. It's quite rare to see Chair Jerome Powell speaking on a Sunday, but it happened anyway. So going forward for the week, we'll be getting more data, including monetary policy meeting minutes from the Reserve Bank of Australia at 4:30 a.m. on Tuesday. Then later on, ECB President Lagarde will be speaking at 11 a.m. on Tuesday. Then we get the CPI inflation data from Canada at 3:30 p.m. on Tuesday. So notice that there will be more FOMC members speaking. In this case, Waller, Bakin, Williams, and Bostic. This will be on Tuesday before we see another speech by Barr at 6:45 p.m. on the same day. So a speech from Bank of England, Governor Bailey at 8 p.m. tomorrow will also be very important before now we start focusing on central banks. So the second central banks to be reporting on its interest rate decision this week after the People's Bank of China will be the Reserve Bank of New Zealand, which is expected to hold interest rates steady at the current level of 5.50%, which means that there will be a lot of focus on the RBNZ press conference. So this press conference will basically share insights into oncoming monetary policy for New Zealand, sort of investors will be following on this closely. So notice that it's a very busy week for the UK with the Bank of England Governor Bailey speaking. Then later on, we get inflation data from the UK, which is a CPI year over year. This is expected to drop to 2.1%, down from the previous reading of 3.2%. And this would be dangerously close to the Bank of England's target of 2.0%, which would likely increase the push for early rate cuts for the Bank of England. So we'll be getting more inflation data, including producer price index, retail price index, as well as housing price index. So we'll be getting crude oil inventories on Wednesday, May 22nd at around 5:30 p.m. Then FOMC meeting minutes at 9 p.m. on Wednesday, and a speech from the South Bank of New Zealand Governor Orr, and this will be happening at 11:10 p.m. On the evening after the interest rate decision. So New Zealand retail sales quarter over quarter, 1:45 a.m. on Thursday. Then we get the S&P Global Flash Manufacturing as well as Services PMI data, which will be coming in for a majority of the major economies. So starting from the morning, we'll be getting data for Australia, Japan, then the Eurozone, then the UK. And of course, as we approach the end of the day, we get the same data for the US. So on Friday, this is when we will be having the national core CPI for Japan at 2:30 a.m. Then UK retail sales. Notice how the GBP might be busy this week. So Swiss National Bank Chairman Jordan will be speaking at 10:45 a.m. on Friday. Then core retail sales data on Monday, retail sales data, as well as overall retail sales data for Canada at 3:30 p.m. on Friday, before we end the week with FOMC member Waller speaking and revised University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment Survey at 5 p.m. on Friday. So that's the highlight of the week. And if you come here and try to filter to see only the most important data, you can remove this and only remain with the red ones, which are basically classified according to importance. Then you can see that a major highlight is on Canadian dollar, starting from CPI through to, we have seen retail sales on Friday. So for the UK, a speech from Bank of England Governor Bailey, then CPI from the UK, and then flash manufacturing and services PMI before we look at retail sales. So I believe the busiest currency for the week will be the UK pound. So for the dollar, we don't expect much for the week. So unemployment claims, flash manufacturing PMI, as well as services PMI, then FOMC meeting minutes. I think that's the key highlight. Of course, the most volatile pair tomorrow, on Wednesday, is expected to be the New Zealand dollar after the announcement of the interest rate decision, followed by the press conference. This will be the RBNZ rate statement. Then later on, we get a speech on the same day from the Governor Adrian Orr. So those are the key highlights for the week. Of course, there are other things that are currently happening in the markets. I believe we should be having quite a week. So we all know what happened over the weekend. Helicopter carrying the president of Iran basically crashed, and that's quite big news in the market. So we will be following on that closely. So I'm trying to find the link to that. So just a sec. All right. So we had major news happening over the weekend, where the helicopter carrying Iran's president, as well as other top government leaders, collapsed on Saturday. Then on Sunday, search and rescue operations continued. And early this morning, we had confirmation that indeed the Iran's president was sadly dead. And as a result of that, we are seeing increased or heightened tensions in the markets this morning, leading to a very strong rally in gold as well as oil prices. So we'll be looking at that and try to understand how that might impact the markets going forward. So besides that, we also have other news happening in the markets. And the major news happening in the markets this week is Nvidia earnings. So there will be quite a number of earnings this week, but the key focus will be on Nvidia Corporation, which has been one of the best performing stocks for the year. So since the year started, that is on the 1st of January 2024, Nvidia stock has gained about 91.99%, and this is quite a significant performance. And this is following its track of beating earnings, and of course, providing microchips for basically companies that are looking to build data centers as well as AI projects such as Google and so on. So there has been a crazy demand for Nvidia products, and as a result, this has extended to Nvidia shares. And now the company is valued at $2.27 trillion, up more than 1 trillion this year. So in the past 5 days, we have seen Nvidia move up and then move down towards the end of last week, but still it managed to squeeze in at 2.22% performance, whereas the one-day performance, it ended the day on Friday down 1.99%. So going forward, we'll be looking at Nvidia earnings. So I want to show you a highlight of how Nvidia has been performing quarter over quarter. So in the latest data, Nvidia made $24.0 billion in earnings, in revenue. That is the last quarter of last year. Last quarter of last year, we saw 22.1 billion. And now the projection for these earnings is expected to be 24.0 billion. So as you can see, the history of revenue has only been going up. There was this period around 2023 where there was a slight pullback for like 3 quarters before the company started making big movements. And as you can see, the changes in revenue started happening about 4 quarters ago, where there was a big jump from around 7 billion to over 10 billion. Then from here, moving to over 17 billion, and then moving to around 22 billion. And then we are expecting to see $24 billion for Nvidia. So a deeper summary, AI chip giant Nvidia is about to report first quarter earnings, and here is what Wall Street expects. So hopefully you will be able to see this. Sorry, I wasn't sharing this tab. So this is the tab I was demonstrating. Hopefully you guys didn't miss anything. So in this one, you can see the change here in Nvidia revenues quarter over quarter. So there was a steady growth, then a pullback somewhere mid-2023. Then the big jumps started in quarter one here. So there was a jump here to around almost 7 billion, then a jump to over 10 billion, then a jump to over 17 billion, then another jump to over 22 billion, and now we're expecting 24 billion for the current quarter. So this has been a significant growth, attracting a lot of investors into Nvidia stock. And now from this article from Fortune, you can see projections from Wall Street as to Nvidia's earnings. So unfortunately, somehow I lost access to the article, so I'll have to subscribe again. So let's move on to technical analysis and try to understand what might be happening going forward. Awesome. So this is a chart of Nvidia shares, and as you can see, it has been one company that has made some strong rally over the past couple of weeks and months as well as days. So if you go to the daily chart, then you'd notice the story of Nvidia has been nothing but exemplary. So from last year, January, we saw the company making over 100% gains. This year, it started pretty strongly. So you can see December, January, February was just strong momentum. Then within the month of this is April. So within the month of April, we had this pullback happening. But then getting into May, we have seen a very strong recovery in the stock. So from the forward chart, you can already see that the stock is about to make 100% recovery after making this recent pullback. So this is the all-time high price. I'll try and change the properties of this one so that it's a little bit thicker. So the all-time high is $972 per share. So the pullback went all the way down to 754, and the extent of the pullback was about 22.38%. So since then, Nvidia shares have been on a very strong bullish momentum, and now it's very close to hitting a new all-time high ahead of the earnings on Wednesday. So there's a good chance we could be seeing Nvidia completing this journey before the earnings date. So in this case, there's a good likelihood that the price jumps from the current price level of $946.31 up to 972, and this has the likelihood of giving some nice and easy returns, about a 2.87% rally. So besides that, if you go to the currencies market, this is what we are seeing with the dollar index. So a continued bearish momentum, despite the Fed members showing consistently that they do not expect to cut interest rates early. So in this case, they are looking forward to potentially continue holding rates higher for longer until inflation behaves as expected. So overall, it seems more likely that the market is following a path along this area here. And now we have just bounced from the lower trend line and we are on the path to recovery. So there is a good chance we could be seeing a strong dollar this week. So in this case, potentially, we could be seeing the dollar now aiming for the upper trend line, having lost in the last couple of weeks, dropping to a level around 104. And we know that inflation is still at a level that is considered significantly higher at 3.4%. So looking at other major currencies, you'll notice, for instance, the euro has been on a very strong uptrend against the dollar. So some of the price action that we saw last week was quite telling. And one of the key things to consider is that this particular trend line here was broken last week. So having seen this happening last week, there was a big break followed by a pullback and now a continuation, which implies that these currencies are strengthening against the dollar, but not for long as there is a likelihood that these central banks go for rate cuts earlier than the dollar. So in this case, I believe these week's operating mechanisms will be based on last week's highs and lows. So last week's high was there, last week's low was here, and now we are much closer to last week's high compared to last week's low. So a high probability that we might be retesting last week's high. So for today, it seems more likely that the market could be headed all the way up to retest the highest price that we saw last week. So as for the dollar trading against the Swiss franc, we are seeing a key level being tested here. So this is a level that was acting as support, now turned into a resistance, and now the market has tested the level twice at that time here, and now we are on the verge of a break. So if the market happens to break that successfully, then we could be seeing a quick run to the next available area, which was previously acting as a resistance. So if you notice this area here, and I'll try and change the properties of this one, go to parameters, add fill and change the color to yellow, then make this background. And now we have a solid rectangle showing the previous resistance area. And now if the market happens to break above this area, then a run towards this area could be possible. That is 0.91488. So pound USD is currently testing the high that we saw on Friday. So notice that these breaks happened last week and they were pretty strong. So if you look at the extreme prices here, you'll notice that yes, we had this break here, market pulled back for a retest, and then continue trading higher. Then from there, you also notice that there was this area here that was acting as the resistance, and now the market is retesting that area again. So if the dollar happens to be strong this week, then the idea is to trade the reversal here. So if the market decides to pull back, then the idea is to target the lows that we saw on both Thursday and Friday. So potentially we could be seeing the market tracing back towards the previous low of 1.26446. So for New Zealand USD, it has been one of the strongest currency this year. So especially last month, the New Zealand USD as well as Audi USD have been pretty strong. So notice how they broke this particular resistance with 2 weeks ahead of Euro USD and Pound USD. So after making the breakout, there was a pullback and then a continuation. And now it seems like the market is ranging around that area. So if you zoom out and you try to understand the key price levels, then you notice that the major price levels that we are witnessing here could be a support area here, then a resistance on the upper side, this area here. And now the market is trapped in between. So now if you go to a smaller time frame, in this case, the 1 hour time frame, then you notice the market is almost entering into a flag formation. So for the arrows, I think they are too thin. So I'll just adjust the size a little bit. So this is what we are seeing. And then in the last 2 days of trading, you go to a smaller time frame, in this case, the 15 minutes chart, then you notice that this is a more of a flag formation. So let's make this thicker. So I recently changed machines, so that's why you are seeing I have to customize some of these things on the go. So we are seeing this flag happening here in New Zealand USD. If you're on the 1 hour chart, this is how it looks like. So market makes a very strong bullish momentum. Then for 2 days, it's just moving sideways, today being the 3rd day. And of course, remember we mentioned that there is a low volume. So you could be seeing this slow boarding into the New Zealand, Reserve Bank of New Zealand interest rate decision. So we could be seeing more of sideways momentum before the announcement of the interest rate decision. So for now, I expect the market to continue with this sideways formation with the 2 trend lines acting as checks for both resistance and support. So for USD CAD, notice that now the market is almost exhausting the bearish momentum. And at this point, we should be expecting to see some form of support. So notice this area here, just to give you a brief highlight. So it was previously acting as the resistance, and once broken, now it becomes support. And now notice how the market has been attempting to break that area and failing each time. So every time the market has tried to break below that, has just come back upwards. And now, judging from the price action that we had last week, you can see that the market is entering some form of consolidation, or what I would describe as a triangle. So for the triangle to make sense, you'd have to look at the sequence of previous highs and lows. So if I was to use the triangle this way, so I also have to customize this one, make it a fill, and then make it yellow for easier highlight. So this is what we are looking at here. So the price action for the last 3 days has just been consolidating. Yes, we are seeing lower highs, higher lows, but the market is generally moving sideways. So the overall price action can be described as this way. So in this case, we should be looking for a break in USD CAD, potentially above or below this triangle, with more likelihood that the market may be breaking above, especially if we see the dollar recovering this week. So for Audi USD, also we are seeing the market currently being on a very strong bullish momentum. So if you look at the daily chart, you'll notice how over the recent days, the Australian dollar has been gaining against the US dollar, especially the second half of last month and better part of this month. Then from the 4 hour chart, notice that this bullish momentum has continued to be pretty strong. And after the market closing almost at a high last week, you should notice that this was the extreme high. So that's the parameter we are working with. The extreme low is here for last week. And now the market is trading very close to the highest price that we saw last week. So following on this, notice that the bullish momentum was followed by another attempt to form another high. And now the market is most likely going to be retesting this area. So in this case, we should be looking for a potential break around this area here. So if the market moves back, then we look for a potential break. But if the break fails, then the idea is now to look for a short selling position, targeting the lowest price of last week, especially if the dollar was to begin recovering early this week. So as for USDN, we have seen these cycles happening. So the first time we saw the Bank of Japan intervening in the currency markets, we saw this drop. Second time, this drop, which was extended to this point here. Then the market continued recovering, but they did not wait for the market to get to the previous high before dumping again. And now the market is attempting to move higher. So notice these levels here. So the first time the Bank of Japan intervened was at that price level, which led to this momentum here. Second time was at this price level here. So sorry for that. Let's make it a little bit bigger. So that led to this momentum here. So price was driven high again, and then in the most recent price action. So here we are not sure whether it was just price action or participants in the market basically succumbing to fear and driving prices back down. So we had this happening last week. And now, towards the end of last week, the market was making a recovery. And now the question is, will the Bank of Japan wait for the prices to get back to the previous high before pushing prices down again? So we notice the trend is that the price doesn't have to get to the previous high before it's pumped down again. So it doesn't have to get to this previous high before it's pumped down again. And now, as the market approaches yet another high, then we should be looking for yet another set of short selling opportunities. Of course, from the 15 minutes chart, you can see that we already have this price action formation here. And this should be very telling for any participant. So if you're trading USDN, then you might be tracking this area here for potential breakout. And for me, I would be more interested with a breakout that goes below that trend line. So anytime the market breaks below that trend line, then there should be an opportunity to go for a short selling position and target even lower prices. So silver was making all the news last week after breaking into a high that hasn't been seen in decades. So I don't know if we have all that price action. So it managed to break $30 per ounce. In this case, for the first time in a long, long time. So this is the $30 price level. Following a short squeeze where there has been a lot of paper silver compared to bullion silver. So a lot of investors, especially Reddit guys, if you have been following Reddit, Wall Street Silver, then you know that a lot of these guys have been buying bullion silver, eventually leading to liquidation of shorts. And as a result, led to this big price acceleration that started from around this price level and ended here as the high of last week. So this was the highest price we saw at $32,483. So in this case, now looking at the close of the week and the opening of this week, markets opened strongly in correlation with gold, hit this area here, pulled back, and now we are seeing signs of continuation. So in this case, I would be more interested if the market was to retest this area again. And if there's a breakout higher, then continue trading the breakout as silver prices continue with this strong bullish momentum. So from the daily chart, it's just a very strong bullish momentum. So it doesn't make sense to be looking for shorts, rather look to enjoy the continued momentum upside. So gold this morning formed a new all-time high, and this was as a result of the concerns raised after the death of the Iranian president. So there's a lot of uncertainty. We don't know who was involved, why it happened. And as we get more details, then we should be seeing more investors going for safe haven, for the safe haven asset. So after this pullback that we saw happening here, so from the all-time high in gold, we saw a drop of 6.19% before the market made a full recovery. And this morning, it made a break. So after seeing this break, we know whatever happens in a breakout is that there's this common formation where the market breaks an all-time high price level, forms a new all-time high, pulls back to the same area, and then bounces and continues with that trend. So in this case, the overall expectation is some further upside momentum for gold, but for now, it seems like the market is misbehaving. We don't have as much momentum after this pullback here. So perhaps the London and New York Opens will be more catalyst for more bullish momentum in gold, having hit 2450 for the first time ever. So in this case, a market will cross to its all-time high, pulling back slightly, hasn't changed anything fundamentally. So there's a good likelihood that we continue seeing more momentum in gold, in this case with a target of 2,500. So Brent oil prices have been stuck in this pattern here for quite a period. I would say quite a good number of weeks. So it's more a loudspeaker formation or a horn. So we all know this pattern here. And after we followed the price action last week, we saw the market bouncing from here, making a rally all the way up. And now from the price action we are seeing right now, then it's a book pattern that we normally describe as an evening star. So for anyone who follows candlesticks and understands the price action from candlesticks, then we know here we are looking at a potential evening star, which might imply that price is now headed downwards. So in this case, for a short-term intraday target, I would go for Friday's low. So this was the lowest price that we saw on Friday. So on the short run, if the market crosses with this candlestick like this, then the likelihood increases that the market could continue dropping and at least get to $82.829 per barrel. Of course, there has been fears of the disruption that might be caused by Iran and the developments that might happen after that. So a potential break is also on the books. So you should also be very careful. So if you go for shorts, use tight stops. And in case this turns to the upper side and breaks the trend line, then the idea is to go for a bullish trade. And of course, if there's a breakout and a bullish trade, then the target will be this previous low here. So notice how this area was very instrumental as a support area here. And now if the market was to break upwards, then we could be seeing the market going up and heading to $85.19 per barrel. But now the price action is indicating bearish momentum. So US equity indices continue in their bullish run. So from the 4-hour chart, you can see that the S&P 500 managed to form a new all-time high last week. So having broken the previous high, we saw this bullish momentum accelerating higher. Then after we got to this resistance, notice how price pulled back downwards on Thursday. Then Friday was almost completely flat. And then today it's almost completely flat, but very close to the all-time high, which raises the likelihood that the market might be headed for yet another all-time high. So in this case, nothing has changed. So the expectation that the market gets the previous high, breaks, and forms a new all-time high. So the Dow is also at the very verge of forming a new all-time high. So after forming the new all-time high last week and ending the week on a high, you can see the pullback and the rally here. And now today the market is almost muted. Nothing much is happening here. So eventually we expect to see momentum coming in the markets and the market breaking higher and forming a new all-time high. So right now the sentiment in the market is strongly bullish. So even if we see some form of pullback, the idea is to trade the break here and enjoy as the market goes for a new all-time high. So the Nasdaq is one of the most tech-dominated indices, and with Nvidia reporting this week, we expect Nvidia to have a big impact on Nasdaq momentum. So in this case, what we are seeing here is a market that is trading well within a flag. So this is more of a flag formation. So yes, we could be seeing the market pulling back downwards towards the lower trend line, but then overall, this is not heavily confident given the bullishness in equities. So also we should be tracking the all-time high, looking for a potential break and the market going straight above. So in this case, I would be observing the London Open as well as the New York Open today to see what direction momentum takes, but I would avoid trading in this rangy price action. So this range is not making much sense, so I would rather wait until I see price action taking a direction. So think about it this way. Notice how we had this day. So market moving on slowly, nothing much was happening. And then all of a sudden, you see the market making a big move. So the big move accelerated all the way up. So now, after this, we had another range. And then in this case, we had a false break. So in this case, notice what happened. Market breaks towards the lower side, says no, we are not going down, moves back upwards, but then eventually ends up moving in that direction, the initial direction here. So now we are seeing yet another range, and we don't know the direction of the break. So we sit back, sit on our hands, and wait for the eventual direction of the markets. So Bitcoin is making some good momentum this morning. So currently trading at 66,864. It's still within the flag. So notice that we haven't broken out of the flag. So in this case, we are still on the upswing, heading towards the upper trend line. So in this case, we haven't hit the upper trend line yet. So there's still more room for upside. So the market just bounced from the lower side. So notice this big swing here. And now we are going for another big swing here. And there's a target around $70,000 per Bitcoin. So that's it for the day. I'll be looking at the questions, try to answer them before we end the session. So good morning, Murage. Good morning, J Squad, Kennels, Kenneth Roche, Jason. Believe I had responded to this. So this is the first question for the day. So in a day where we have speeches from Fed officials, how do you trade given that some will have come out dovish, others hawkish? So for me, I would rather just consolidate. So wait for all the speeches, look at the summary from all the speeches, and try to have an overall direction. So obviously, we'll have there's a good chance we'll have leaning towards one direction, whether holding interest rates higher for longer or going for early rate cuts. So try to consolidate a picture based on all the speeches, and now you will know which direction they're expecting to take the US interest rates in the near future. So what you do, you first of all check from the Fed website to see how many of these members are voters, because not all FOMC members are voters. So pay keen focus on the ones that are actively voting. So a good question, is it possible to buy Manchester United shares just like any other stocks? Yes, number 8 on click, but it is possible. I don't know if we have the shares on the platform, but I will check. From which website? I don't know which website you're referring to. Let me clarify. So you said that the Reserve Bank of New Zealand is most likely to hold interest rates. So New Zealand has fully recovered from the intervention by Bank of Japan. Could we say that the market has fully factored in the possible strength of New Zealand dollar? So the New Zealand dollar is one of the economies experiencing very high interest rates, currently at 5.5%. So that reasonably attracts capital to New Zealand because also their bond yields are significantly high. So this has led to a much stronger New Zealand dollar. And looking forward, we're looking at the inflation, trying to understand the direction that the inflation might be taking. So if inflation remains high for longer than expected, then it means that you can take positions in New Zealand, especially in their bonds, and that basically strengthens the currency. So in this case, investors are trying to avoid a currency that might go for early rate cuts and going for a currency that might hold interest rates higher for longer. So in this case, that's the direction we are thinking about. So out in New Zealand, we normally take it as as a derivative of both New Zealand USD and Audi USD, and I believe we already covered both. So it's easier to make a judgment having seen Audi USD and New Zealand USD. So last week we saw the USD reacting very negatively to some quite positive readings. So this week it doesn't have much to impact it positively to provoke some strength. So you mentioned that it might be strong this week. How? So we have these FOMC members basically issuing different speeches. So the overall picture painted by the collective FOMC members could be a key driver for the US dollar. And of course, as we all know, if you've been trading for a while, the dollar always comes back. So if you see the dollar index being pumped lower and lower, then it always comes back. So in this case, we expect to see the dollar recovering at some point, and there's a good chance that is analysis on USD card, the pound USD we did. Which football club do you support? I'm a Chelsea fan. I agree. On a slight pullback, then a move higher to 2,500. Thank you, Ruth. So good for Friday have been taken by Norbert. So the Friday sessions are still happening on Fridays. So make sure to check out the market snapshot on Friday at exactly 11 a.m. So thank you very much, guys. Thank you for your time. Remember to like and share the video. And I hope to see you on the next session. So if you're very new to trading, make sure to check out the links in the description below and register for a trading account. And if you want beginner sessions, they are available on FX Pesa YouTube. Just look for Novice to Pro by Rufus Kamau, and you'll have quite a good head start in your trading journey. So thank you guys, and I hope to see you on the next session.